Welcome back. Story of God, episode 6. So far, we have gone through 5 stories. We've talked about God creating the universe and how the angels respond to that, both the good way and a bad way, and then how God creates, not how, but God is creating the world, and the world is good, right? He has good creation. He creates the spaces, the air, the sky, the sea, the land, so the 3 parts. And then he fills those parts, those domains. And part of that is also the humans. And then he goes through, or the story goes into very detailed how God creates the humans. And he gives it 2 parts of the beast part, right, the earth part. And then he also breathes in the life into those humans. And so the humans have these 2 parts. The instinct part and the self-control part. And then we go into the fall, right, where the humans are given this choice, this boundary, say, hey, don't eat this tree, and they eat the tree, and the consequences of that, and they're kicked out of the garden, and God is really sorrowful and compassionate around that, and we learn about his compassion, we learn about him not liking disobedience, and giving people choices, but also having to give punishment and consequences to those choices. And then Adam and Eve are outside the garden, and they have kids, and then Cain and Abel. Cain basically creates the same scenario of killing is bad, but he makes the choice to kill his brother to get him out of the way so that he's looked at more favorably. And God, of course, sees through all that and basically curses his occupation and kicks him out of this new garden or civilization and says, hey, all right, you're going to wander the earth. You can no longer be within this area anymore. And so we come to chapter 6, the end and a new beginning. So remember, we're reading, we are listening with our good ears the whole way through. The humans multiplied on the earth, along with their rebellious ways. As a people, they were becoming more selfish and more violent, and do not want to remember God. When God saw that humanity's thoughts had become evil, nonstop, day and night, he decided to start over. He said, I will completely wipe out humanity, and with them all the birds and creatures that move on the earth. I regret that I ever made them. But there was one man named Noah who found favor in God's eyes because he was a blameless man. He was an ancestor of Seth by 8 generations. So God said to Noah, I have decided to flood the earth, destroying all the people because of all the violence they have created. But I will give you a plan to keep you safe. God told Noah to build a large wooden box and even gave him very detailed instructions on dimensions and materials. God said, I promise to keep you and your family safe in this box. A pair of every kind of animal, a male and a female, will come to you to be kept safe as well. You will also bring 7 pairs of clean animals to eat and sacrifice. Make sure to bring food enough for all of them. Noah followed God's instructions, and one day after the ark was completed, God warned Noah that the flood would come in 7 days. So Noah and his wife, their 3 sons and their wives, and all the animals entered the ark. God himself sealed the door. Then the flood came. Water burst from the deep, and rain poured from the sky. After 40 days, the rain stopped. Every breathing thing on the earth died, except for those in the ark, 8 humans and the animals. Months passed as Noah waited for the ground to dry up. Finally, he sent out a dove, which returned after flying over the land, and it had an olive leaf in its mouth. Noah and his family finally came out of the ark and immediately built an altar where they sacrificed some of the pure animals to God as an offering of thankfulness and worship. God was pleased with Noah's sacrifice. He said, even though people's thoughts and actions are bent toward evil from the time they were children, I promise never again to curse the ground or destroy all living things with a flood. As a symbol of my promise, I will hang a rainbow in the clouds. Whenever you see a rainbow, remember my promise. Then God told Noah and his sons, in the beginning I gave all the plants of the earth to feed all the animals and humans. But now I give you everything to eat as food. The fear of you will now be in all the animals because you can use them for food. But you must never eat animals that still have their lifeblood in them. Life is in that blood, and all life belongs to me. And I will demand a penalty for your lifeblood too. I will require it from any animal and from any human. If someone murders a fellow human, I will require that person's life. Those who murder must be punished by death. And here's why. The person who is murdered and the murderer themselves are both made by God in his image. God blessed Noah and his sons and their wives, telling them to grow their families and once again fill the earth with people. All right, recap. What is the story?
Humans are selfish and violent.
And God wanted to wipe them out.
I just kept going, selfish and
basically
violent,
start
selfish
over.
and violent, selfish and violent.
Right? I must remember.
But a man named Noah found favor in God's eyes. And so he wanted to put Noah in charge, or keep Noah alive, I guess, and the animals.
Yep.
And then?
So he made a big box,
Made a big, yeah,
specific dimensions,
grabbed his family, grabbed
3
animals.
sons, their wives, his wife.
No kids. I didn't hear any kids.
Nope.
Grabbed them, put them in the boat, and then God sealed the boat,
Yeah, that was interesting. Sealed the door.
sealed the door, and then it flooded for months. Noah waited months, it said. And then eventually a bird comes back with olive
Olive leaf.
Branch?
branch
Olive
yep,
leaf.
in its mouth, and that's when they know. And then God kind of brings about this new promise to humanity, to Noah and his family.
Well,
and
they got off the boat and
They
they
got
made a
off the boat.
sacrifice.
Yep, that was a big part. They made the sacrifices, and God saw the sacrifice as acceptable, was it? I think that was the terminology. And then God makes a promise, some pretty big promises about humanity and what happens if you murder. No, it was about the blood, too, the blood of the animals first.
It's an interesting piece of the story.
Well, he made a promise that he would never wipe out humans again and with a flood. And that a rainbow is the symbol of that. A rainbow in the sky. And then
And now they can start eating animals, so now they don't have to be vegans anymore.
God bless. But you can't. Was it saying that you can't eat them when they're alive? Like you can only eat
And
them
they
if
have
they're
their
dead?
lifeblood in them.
With
Okay.
the blood, yeah.
Okay,
Because the
gotcha.
blood is life.
So that's raw meat right there.
And then there's the little piece about anyone who murders somebody must then be killed, which then made me immediately think, well, Cain got away with that.
Yeah, that was confusing.
And that the murderer and the person that is murdered are all made in the image of God.
And that's why.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really understand that either.
So
Like,
no matter how
so that
crooked the
means you need
murderer
to
is,
die.
yeah.
So then God finds value in all people. Everybody is valuable.
Yep.
Nobody is more valuable or less valuable.
Sure.
And then he blessed Noah at the end. He blessed him. So, I mean, Noah must have been a pretty good guy.
He was
if,
blameless.
like, yeah, I mean, if all the world is sinning, it said all day and all night.
And it didn't it say that there were, can't remember if it said the word millions, but there were like, the people had, there were lots of people.
Yeah,
Multiplied. That was the
multiplied.
word. I knew
It's an
it
M.
started with an M. But
Multiplied.
they had multiplied, which made me think that there were a lot of people and how
And they're
one
all evil.
person could just ignore everything that they were doing and do their own thing.
And also God regretted that he had made them.
That was the
That's
painful one.
rough.
He regretted making
That's
man.
rough.
Yeah, that definitely gets a hitch in my bonnet as well. Like, how does God regret? Like, if he knows everything and he's created this universe that's good, how can he regret?
But at the end of all this, God, like, it's almost still encouraging. He blesses Noah and then tells him, hey, grow your family, fill the earth, and keep going. It's almost like a renewed,
It's like
promise.
a second creation.
Yeah, like a second.
let's do
yeah.
over.
It was interesting to me, too, why. I mean, you'd think that all these people, he regretted making them, and I feel like he would have regretted giving them free will because they turned out to be violent and just horrible people, apparently, probably due to their actions. And so it's interesting. Well, I'm not going to jump ahead, but just assuming that maybe in the future he's still giving free will to us as humans and how he's still allowing that, knowing what could happen.
And I still wrestle with that. So he creates all these people knowing that these people will not follow him, that they will disobey him and do bad things all day and night. I think like, so why still make them? Why still love them and pursue them, even though you know they're just gonna reject you? Yeah.
Whenever I think of this story, I think of how important it is to have already built a little bit of a snapshot of God's character. Because if you don't have this, that he's good and he's thoughtful and he wants to be in relationship, then this story just sounds like God's mad and just wiping everyone out because he's mad.
Yeah.
Like, you made me so mad, I'm just going to take you all out.
Yeah, you definitely need the context of who he is.
Yeah,
and
like,
what
who
he's
is
done.
this God? Is he just a big... But I think that's what a lot of people think. They think God sits in heaven and he's just mad at everybody. And so he sends a virus to shut everything down, or he does these things to smite people or make them suffer because he's mad at them. I think a lot of people think that, but that's why it's important for us to go, but okay, is he a mad God in this story? Is he angry? Is he wrathful? Is he a smiting God, or is he good? And can he be both?
I think he's caring again. We see caring, that he cared about Noah, that he cared about humanity still, and gave
So he only cared about Noah?
not only Noah,
So what do you think is
he
the
loved Adam and Eve.
why did God at this moment in time decide to do the flood, to kill all humanity? Why now?
Yeah, I wonder, like, how many or how long it had been going on before he decided at that moment. Like, if it had been going on for a while, why? I don't have the answer to this question.
What's his tipping point? Because all we know from that story is Noah was blameless. It doesn't say his wife was blameless. It doesn't say his kids were. We don't know, but it only says Noah is blameless.
Yeah.
So did he have some, like, scale of when there's only one person left on the earth blameless, that's when I take him out?
That's when we wipe them.
In my mind, I think it is, because it's only at the point when every single person is 100% evil and there's no way to reconcile humanity. And it's on the brink of this one last guy, like, he has to step in or all is lost. He has to put in this barrier around this guy and either lift him onto another planet or wipe the whole planet. Because this one guy is on the brink of destruction himself, right?
And if Noah wasn't that guy, the story would have ended. We wouldn't know what else happens. If you think about it, I mean, we wouldn't know what.
Yeah, if that
Well, that
one
is
last
true.
pawn
Yeah.
topples and the whole
Then they're
board
all
is-
wiped out.
Then everybody's wiped out. And so he steps in right before then.
But so the real question is, and we don't know, why didn't he step in when there were like 10 good guys left?
Well, yeah, what's the attribute up here that God is
He's so patient.
God's patient? He's waiting and he's, hey, make good choices, right? Make good choices, make good choices. And
I'm just so curious what it actually looked like for those, like, what were those humans doing that was so bad? Maybe I don't want to know, but, like, all we know is they were violent, and what was the other word? You should know this.
Selfish.
Selfish.
And evil was the other descriptive word. That their thoughts were, was it their thoughts were evil? Or every thought was evil?
their thoughts have become evil nonstop, day and night.
That's
Sounds
pretty rough.
corrupted.
Yeah.
Evil, right? And so, I mean, we can all use our imagination of what an evil society would look like, right? It's almost like the zombie apocalypse movie. Just like everybody is just like 100% for themselves, and they take advantage of everybody, right? And so if everybody is taking advantage of everybody else, right? That's all. Everybody's a victim. Everybody's a perpetrator, and so it's.
So a loving God who values everyone, which we kind of said at the beginning of this story, can't allow that.
He loves everyone. Everybody's getting hurt because they're all making those choices. It's like, all right.
I think that is like, I think we could camp right there for a while. I'm not suggesting that we do that, but if we modernize that, when I try and modernize that in my head and I think of how much evil happens in our world even now, and I think about how often, even just myself, I ask the question of like, where is God? Why isn't he intervening? Why is he allowing thousands of children to be slaughtered, or, you know, ISIS to take out and torture thousands of people, or whatever? where is God? But if we look at him through this lens, we see him as patient. But also, I have to flip it on its ear and go, first glance, this story is God's really mad. He's just mad at everybody, and he's just going to take them all out. But if you look at it through the lens of he's patient, he can't win. He almost can't win. God can't win, because we're either mad that he's not doing something, or we think he's really mean when he does something, right? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. He can't win in this.
Would an attribute of God, I'm trying to think of a word that sums this up, but that he doesn't give up on us.
Relentless.
Relentless. That's what I
Heard that word in church before.
Yeah, I know. That might be a churchy word. But just the fact that he didn't just like wipe out everyone and just, I'm not even going to try with these humans anymore.
We kind of have that in the word pursue. He pursues us.
Did we already say that humans are selfish? Or is that under like prideful?
We probably have, but
No.
We didn't add
Selfish
that.
and evil at this point.
think about selfish.
Now we're starting to really see there's like
That's
evil.
a real bummer to have
Yeah.
that. be
Yeah,
part
we
of
don't
our
have a lot of good
definition.
Yeah, I
words,
really don't
I'll be
wanna put that
honest.
up there.
It's getting worse.
I think we all know, man.
It was just a
Just turn on the news.
temporary time of
Yeah.
evilness.
No, people are great
But
now.
is it fair to say that God doesn't give up on his creation?
So
Yeah.
he perseveres.
Yeah, that's a good word too.
Say it however it makes sense
Yeah.
to you,
Okay.
Rach.
I'll do my best.
All right, ask your hard questions, teacher.
There we go.
is killing. So you have to imagine, like, this is a large society, lots of people, young and old, lots of people that are what we would call innocents as far as being young, right? And so God is killing all these people. And so is that evil? Right? Is God doing an evil thing here? Is that fair?
Wait, did you just say he's killing innocent people? Because
No.
are any of them innocent?
No. He said, I'm saying that they are people that, in our eyes, our modern eyes of these young children, we would think that they would be innocents, right?
Right.
But
That's true. Babies died in the flood.
babies died.
Toddlers died.
Like, if you're a day-old baby, you would still be dying, and that day-old baby obviously isn't evil, right? It doesn't have that capacity, but it still dies.
Oof. Are you
So
asking a question there?
What? Yeah, I mean, is this evil, right? Is God doing an evil thing here? It'll come up again, so we can.
Thus far in the story, though, I've yet to see God create evil or do anything necessarily just evil out of a malicious heart, out of a malicious spirit. Like everything has just been consequence. Hey, you guys made the decision. Here's the consequence.
Yeah.
I've yet to see God so mad and be like, I'm just going to take people out because I'm evil and mad. Like that's.
But then how else do you explain it? It has to be addressed. How could God be good and babies were likely killed? They were killed. They would have to be killed. People are always having babies. How could God be good and toddlers drowned in a flood?
I like to think of it, so I've wrestled this as well, but I think there's an underlying assumption of, and the question would be, is dying a bad thing? Is dying in this reality a bad thing? Like we tend to think we live in this reality and say, hey, death is bad because this ends our existence in this reality, right?
Well, as of thus far in the story, I don't know what happens with life or
Yeah.
what happens after life, I
Right.
guess. So, yeah.
But I
So
think that's
they've
the
been
assumption.
mercifully rescued before they could become this evil? Is that maybe what you're proposing?
Possibly.
I mean,
Saving them from a lifetime of...
if I were thinking of this as a Christian, I think that's logical. If I were removing the Christian in me, I would go, well, that sounds like a really handy way to explain that.
So we haven't seen in the story, but we've seen a spiritual side of the story and we've seen a kind of a physical side of the story. So we know there's kind of two realities already, right? And so if we can say that humans have been breathed this spiritual side of into them, and so we know that they are at least semi-spiritual beings. And so, if the physical side of them dies, then the spiritual side of them it's not in the story yet, but I'm just kind of like following it along. But they probably are still existing somewhere, and so the spiritual side of them, the humans aren't actually totally wiped from existence. They're just the physical reality is wiped from existence. And so we don't know what that looks like. We don't know. The story doesn't say anything about it. And so,
But I still go back to Dai's thing. Why would a toddler suffer? It didn't know what it did wrong. It doesn't have that mind yet to be able to decipher what's really bad and like wrong and right.
is that small amount of suffering in that
Right.
few seconds better than the lifetime of suffering?
Well,
that it's
and
definitely
if
gonna have?
every human has every thought that's evil, that child, all of those children will be raised and trained and groomed in evil thought and behavior and violence and selfishness. And a relational God is patient until I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but there's no hope of relationship. There's no way forward
Yeah.
in this path.
Yep.
I felt like it just would be recurring between each generation. The kids would
Gotta
see what
break the
mom and
cycle.
dad did.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just going to be a constant cycle of this evil.
Yep.
I appreciate that. I can I don't know, accept that better than the way we first said it, which just feels that's handy.
All right. Noah and his family offered animal sacrifices to God. What did God say to Noah about the blood from the animals and humans?
The blood is life.
Life,
There's
all
life in the blood.
belongs to him.
Why do you think that's important?
Well, that animal didn't do anything wrong. It was rescued from a flood and it was preserved for a year inside of a box. And then it was innocent, but it was killed.
Wait, was that the
The
animal
end.
that was sacrificed that he said that about? The animal that they sacrificed to him when they got off the
No,
boat?
it just says it about all animals, like
Oh, it was when he was
eating-
talking about all animals. Okay.
And also, I mean, the life, right? The blood is life. And so life belongs to me, he says.
Well, that
So
goes
it's
back
a-
to the violence problem and the killing. So nobody has the right to take life but me, which is sort of like an exclamation point after you just took all the
Yeah.
life.
It almost
Right.
feels like God is saying, "This is mine, and you
Yeah.
can't have it.
Yep.
You can have all these other things." It's all we go
We're
back
playing
to the
by my rules,
yeah.
or we're not playing.
It's back
Yeah.
to the trees.
I feel like
Yeah.
this whole story is like God making a statement. I mean, although he says, I'm never going to wipe out humankind with a flood again. But like, I feel like it's him making a statement that like, in the end, like you have your life because of me. Yeah. And your purpose of life is to love me and be in relationship with me. And so I have the power to, if you're not making those choices and you're being destructive and violent and hurtful and evil, to take away the life that I gave you.
So God is creating more boundaries and more laws every time humanity takes another step further away from him. And so he just kind of like, here's another boundary. All right, fine. Well,
Did you
here's
just
another
come up with that
boundary.
right now?
No.
That's really good.
But it is really good, right?
But it is true because I feel like originally we had there was no boundaries. And
one
there
boundary.
One
there
tree.
was a
That was it.
single
Just the
boundary.
tree boundary.
But it's almost like humans need more boundaries. Otherwise, we're going to stretch it and we're going to push it as far as we can.
Like we will always, somebody within humanity will always make the choice. Whether it's a good choice or bad choice, yes, somebody will make those choices. And so God goes, all right, let's cut off all those choices. Let's cut off all those. All right, well, let's narrow it down. All right, let's narrow it down.
I
And we'll
never
see.
thought of it that way.
We will see as we
Good.
keep going through the story that God's adding more and more as he goes along. All right. Any other details that were sticking out to you? Any problems in the story as our last? A lot to think about. So
I had one when you were reading, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to remember it because I kept thinking selfish and violent, selfish and violent, selfish and violent.
yeah. The sacrifice part. So one last little thing that I thought was interesting was that Noah sacrifices one of the clean animals, And if you are a selfish person, kind of doing some thinking, going, hey, I've only got 7 sheep out of this ark. I've got to feed this family of at least 8 people. How am I going to do that with all the trees are now waterlogged, all the animals are, I mean, only have a certain amount of animals. And so it was actually a real sacrifice for Noah to go, I'm going to take more than 1/10 of my eatable animals and sacrifice. And so I think that
Which
is
they had never
really
eaten animals before then, though, right?
not according to God's law, but yes. I mean, not the story doesn't say it. Abel was a shepherd, but we can say, well, maybe it was for wool. And he did kill animal for the sacrifice.
But go back to the end of that story where it says, you may now
right,
eat.
yes. God
or-
says, yes, now you can do it.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't say that they haven't done it before. I
Okay.
mean, I would kind
Well,
of
yeah,
imagine
they were all
the
evil.
Cain line went
Yeah.
and just like, here's all the animals. But we don't know that for sure. But so food for thought. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Some good discussion. I encourage you, again, read through that story. Look for the problems. Try to set aside your presumptions and your assumptions of what modern life is and how that applies to the Noah story. And think about how Noah felt and what that world was and what Noah's role was in that world as a righteous man before God ever said, hey, go build this ark. Or even while he was building that ark and everybody around him was super evil, right? Think about that stuff. What's going on? Genesis. So figure that out or keep reading. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week.